Good morning, afternoon, dear viewers, and welcome to Kingdoms and Castles, a strategy slash city builder that might be worthy of your attention if you're interested in the genre. The last time I talked about a city builder, it was the extremely good and highly frustrating Caesar 3. Fuck you, Luke Dunham. So I thought to try a newer title in order to mix in a bit of modernity, so here I am exploring Kingdoms and Castles. A city builder game which, despite the fact that it lacks a proper tutorial by design, you can still play it and get a hang of it quite quickly actually. The gameplay experience technically starts from the map generation screen, where you get to see an overview of the map and can choose to have the game generate a new one. For your first several games, this might not seem as a very important feature, but as you learn how the game works and understand which squares of the map are best for generating food, and which ones you'll need for other important resources, you'll start being way more selective with your map. After getting a hang of playing Banished, I would initially zoom out and rotate the map as much as possible so I could see my surroundings and could tell if the map was appropriate for a long run game. Once you start the game proper, you must begin by placing your castle, and that's the only thing that you can do. Shortly after that, you'll only be able to build roads, basic hovels, and planting crops. Once you have those down and you start gathering enough resources, you'll gain access to further building options. And this is how the developers went around the need for making a special tutorial stage, basically by including it in the beginning of each new game. This approach works great for Kingdoms and Castles, mainly because it keeps most of the gameplay interactions and population requirements at a very manageable level. It also works because population management doesn't go into the detail that Banished does, for instance, though you will have to do some population juggling, especially at the beginning when things are a bit slower. You might have to close some of the resource gathering buildings in order to have enough people available to build houses so that new villagers can move into them. It will be a bit slow going at the start, till you get your main resource gathering and supply chain started, but that's true for any city builder. The devs have thankfully added 2 extra game speed options, and not only are they prominently displayed at the top of the screen, but they are very handily shortcut to the 1, 2 and 3 number buttons. So you can quickly speed through resource gathering with 3 and then slow things down to 1 so that you can carefully place your next building. Very nice and convenient. As you may know, if you've watched my previous city builder reviews, I consider roads and the road system to be one of the most important game mechanics for city builders. As such, I always give them their own section in my city builder reviews. I'm happy to report that Kingdoms and Castles allows you to easily build, demolish and rebuild roads. If they exist, they increase the speed of your people and they will be prioritized by them for use, and can also be upgraded to be paved with stones for a further boost in speed and a much nicer overall medieval look. And since I mentioned the medieval look, how does the game impart its medieval light theme? Fairly well, I have to say, as opposed to Banished, where I decried the lack of several important links in various production chains. Kingdoms and Castles does not skip past windmills and bakeries. Even if they don't exactly work as one expects it, I appreciate their inclusion and part in the overall gameplay infrastructure. One important particularity of Kingdoms and Castles is that it also features combat and random disasters, or better yet, it can feature those things, since the devs were also interested in being able to offer players that simple virtual ant farm experience that I talk about wanting from city builders, because sometimes I'm just not in the mood of building weapons and outfitting soldiers to go out and kill things. I do that enough in my normal gaming fare, so you can play the game with or without disasters. The unit combat is simplistic to say the least. It basically boils down to having the people, spending the resources and then clicking to intercept a group of Vikings, and whoever has more units wins. Kingdoms and Castles doesn't have opposing civilizations for you to fight against like Northgard, but it has 2 main disaster mechanics. The first one is Viking raiders, who will occasionally make landfall and sweep through your settlement and wreck a bunch of your shit. This is where the walls, archer towers, ballistas and soldiers come into play, meant to protect and shoo away your invaders. Oh yeah, and they don't just do this once, they keep on coming while you play, the subsequent waves being more numerous and sometimes packing a massive ogre surprise. The second disaster mechanic is actual dragons. Well, dragon. Same as the Vikings, occasionally a lone dragon will pimp over your settlement, burn some shit and then pimp away. Archer towers and ballistas are the only anti-dragon things you can do. At the start they won't do anything more than deter them from hanging around your airspace long enough to burn a maximum amount of things, but as you grow your city and can build more ballistas and archer towers, you can and will manage to down yourself some dragons. And just as it is with most disasters, they can rarely be perfectly predicted. So even though your advisors will tell you when you're about to get hit, both the Vikings and the dragons will attack from random locations. Such is life. The game is called Kingdoms and Castles, so building your castle is as important as building your kingdom. The way in which you build up your castle is by adding various buildings from the castle menu to your town. The more of them you add, the bigger and cooler your castle looks. But that's not really where the skill lies. The skill lies in where you'll be building your castle walls, seeing as how you have to constantly expand, but at the same time you are under threat of Viking raids and dragon flybys. I tend to use naturally occurring groups of stones as parts of my walls, since these cannot be destroyed by invading ogres. The interesting thing that the developers did with the walls is that you can build walls upon walls, making them much higher than the initial placement. This acts to both make it stronger as well as increase the range of whatever weapon you place on top of it. There are limits to how high you can make a stack of walls. Once you pass the third layer of wall, in order to add another one on top of it, the square of wall will have to be supported by another, equally or shorter square of wall right next to it. So in case you do want to build an insanely high tower and put a ballista on it, doing something like what I did here makes the most sense and looks pretty cool to boot. The game has a very specific aesthetic approach, a very low poly, Minecrafty sort of aesthetic. And while I don't have anything against it, I dare say I would have liked the units and buildings to have maybe one or two more layers of detail to them, so that they had some more character. Quite possibly this is due to having played Northgard just before this, and I really dug that game's aesthetic approach. One of the first things you'll notice in the game are the clouds, and they're cool moving in and out and with their blocky design, but they wear out their welcome fast. Thankfully the devs offered the option to take them out of the game, thus making overseeing the map considerably less eye strainy and generally annoying. So that's one starter tip I have towards improving your gameplay experience. Also, anti-aliasing is something that you'll want to see if you prefer with or without. Otherwise the game is generally quite colorful. In fact, the shade of green of a square will tell you how fertile that square is and if it should be used to plant corn, an orchard, or you better use it for roads or real estate. The sounds are nice and usually subdued, and the music is pleasant and medieval-like, although a more modern interpretation. When you zoom into closer to the buildings and people, you hear the music louder as well as the people mumbling. Oh yeah, and in the style of city builders, you can click on each of your villagers and get a sense of who they are and what they do, even though they're basically only a bunch of blocks. Whilst not as deep or focused on realism as Banished, Kingdoms and Castles is a great modern city builder title that also features some light combat options for those who want to add a bit more spice to their virtual ant farm. Kingdoms and Castles is €10 or equivalent in your currency, and as far as I'm concerned, it is definitely worth that. However, if you're not convinced yet, wait for the next Steam or GOG sale and get it then. And that's about it for my Kingdoms and Castles review. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed my video, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and maybe share it if you found it informative. Help my channel grow so I can bring the gospel of nonsense to others. See you next time.